Welcome to the Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva, and today we're going to get some insight into college sports at a Division III school. My guest today is James Adams. He's the athletic director at St. Elizabeth University. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you.
Yeah, so usually I start my guests where they went to college. So where'd you go to school?
Yeah, I am from West Orange, New Jersey originally, but ended up going to college at University of South Carolina. So I'm a Gamecock, proudly. I did track and field there, which is a little bit odd because I'm a basketball coach, but I did track and field actually as a collegiate sport.
Wow.
So I grew up playing basketball. Did track kind of to stay in shape for basketball and ended up being pretty good at it, and ended up going to the Division I level. So
fantastic. So let's just go back in time before we get into what you're actually doing. In high school, when did you start thinking about going to college? Was it freshman year, senior year? When did it all start for you?
Yeah, so freshman year I had the goal of going to a big time college, as most student athletes do, thinking they're going to Duke, Kentucky, whatever it is. But in particular, I knew I was focused on sports and sport management. So that was my other driver besides the athletic part. I wanted to get to a school where I could see athletics at the highest level, basically.
Yeah.
And that was part of the reason why I chose South Carolina to be in the SEC and everything.
Great. So now you go to South Carolina. What's the school like? What did you think of it when you were there?
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. I have family from South Carolina, so it felt a little bit more homely. My grandmother is from Anderson, South Carolina. My grandfather's from Newberry, so I'd been down there for summers and things like that. I was kind of used to the heat, but got down there and it was really homely. The people that were there really embraced me, even being from New Jersey, and it was a great experience athletically and academically.
Great. So now you graduate from college. How does one go from graduating from college to becoming the athletic director at St. Elizabeth University?
Yes, so I would say there were a bunch of steps in between there. Obviously, I didn't go from graduating college to being an AD, but I knew I wanted to get into coaching. So I started with a couple jobs out of college. So I had an internship actually my senior year working for an ABA basketball team. There's a Jersey Express, they're now renamed now, but they're still in existence. So I came back home and worked for a year as an assistant coach, kind of operations guy in the ABA, so that's semi-professional basketball. It was a really great experience for me. I learned a lot, and there were a lot of guys who had played in the NBA, played Division I, played overseas, and they kind of helped me. It was funny because I was about 21 years old at the time, and everybody on the team was older than me. So I'm trying to coach them, but I had my limited experience and things like that. So, but it was a great experience. I did that for a year. And then I got a job as a Division II coach at Georgian Court University, which is down in South Jersey. So worked there for 4 seasons. I was basically the head assistant. So, at that level, small college basketball, you're doing everything. Weightlifting, you're doing conditioning with the guys. You're the study hall guy, you're the recruiter, you're the workout person, the therapist, everything like that. So so I worked there for 4 seasons. That was a really good experience. Lived down there and everything. And then my next job, I got an opportunity to be the video coordinator at the University of Richmond. So that was a big step up for me. I never really lived in Virginia or anything like that. I really just sent a bunch of emails to some college coaches saying, hey, do you might have a spot? And they had a spot open up. And it was a really great opportunity just being at that level from a coaching standpoint,
Sure.
Operations standpoint, just seeing how they do things. And University of Richmond is a first-class university, obviously. So I worked there for 2 seasons, and then was, kind of looking around. I'd done the video coordinator job for 2 years and wanted to either get back to an assistant role, or, something with more responsibility. The St. Elizabeth job happened to open up. I saw that it was in New Jersey. Myself being from New Jersey, didn't even realize the school existed, to be honest. It was an all-women's college for a while.
Sure.
So I wasn't necessarily aware, but saw it was in New Jersey, about 20 minutes from where I grew up, and I applied for the job and, got the job. So yeah, that was really exciting for me. I got the job in August of 2021, right after COVID. So really had to just rebuild the program from the season before it had been canceled. So we had to, try to find players. We had to try to get everything together. It wasn't, as seamless of a process, I guess, as normally as it is with it being COVID and everything. So,
Sure.
so I was coaching for 3 years. We ended up winning a championship in my third year of coaching, which was really, unbelievable for us. And then going into year four, we had just won the championship, but going into year four, our AD had stepped down. So our vice president, David Hill, who's really a great mentor and great to work with, he offered me the position. And frankly, at the beginning, I was a little hesitant. I had never seen myself being in that type of role of being an athletic director, being in charge of everything. But what I kind of thought about was just, St. Elizabeth University and just the potential that we have here. Being a coach for 3 years, I kind of saw, different opportunities to improve the athletic experience and things like that. And I kind of figured what better person to do it than me, who has the ideas already in my head. So, last year was my first full year as athletic director, and now I'm going into year two.
Wow. So, as an athletic director, what exactly does it entail?
Yeah, so it's the overarching, basically I'm the CEO of a bunch of organizations, with those being our athletic program. So we have 13 sports at St. Elizabeth. So I'm in charge of basically coaching the other coaches and helping them to, make sure that their programs have what they need, organizing and syncing it all. Obviously we have different facilities and, different schedules that have to be organized and synced so nothing, runs into each other. And then on a larger scale, I'm advocating for our athletes at the university. So St. Elizabeth is pretty unique in that we are a very athletics heavy institution. We have about close to 25% of the student population are athletes in some way. So we are a big population, and we try to advocate for them, whether it's for academic side, making sure they have the right food to eat, uniforms and things like that.
So now, how you said that there's 13 sports. What are the sports that you handle?
Yep. So we have men's, women's basketball, men's, women's soccer, men's, women's volleyball. We have track and field / cross country, which encompasses about 4 sports. We have stunt / cheerleading, which is actually an emerging sport for women. A very exciting, like high flying, acrobatic sport. And then we also have baseball and softball.
Wow, fantastic. So now, as a student athlete, when they come to St. Elizabeth's, what should they expect? When do they get there? Give me a whole year's worth of what students should expect when they get to St. Elizabeth's University.
Yeah, so I would say first off, it's a beautiful campus. It's kept up well. The Sisters of Charity do a really good job of funding everything. So we actually used to be Seton Hall University's campus before they moved down to South Orange and everything. So the campus is well kept up. It's smaller, but it doesn't feel small. So the buildings aren't really on top of each other or anything like that. There's space to walk around and move. It's very green. And I think from just a student experience standpoint, you're going to feel like you're a part of a family. Like I said, it's a small, institution, but everybody kind of knows everybody, from, cafeteria workers to athletics to, faculty. Nobody can really get lost at St. Elizabeth, and I think that's really a big part of why students choose to come here, because they don't want to go somewhere and, be confused or lost or not, know where to go. But the staff does a really good job overall of just making sure that every student is supported. We have a really high first-year student retention rate, which is, speaks to that effort that we make.
So now, do they get there, the fall sports, when do they start? When do they get there? They get there in August, they get there in September? How does it all start for
Yep, so fall sports are going to come in usually about 2 weeks early, before, even orientation. So they're going to start their preseason training. It'll kind of be them just kind of there, but we make sure we feed them. They practice and do different programming and stuff like that. Then once we get to orientation, then we have all of our new students. That's about a week out from school starting. So orientation will be for our transfers and our freshman students. So they'll go through a week of orientation, just kind of learning everything, kind of when it's a little bit more chill and relaxed. And then usually the weekend before the first day of classes when our returning students move in. So those are all of our, sophomores, juniors, seniors that have already been at St. Elizabeth, and then the school year starts.
And then the sports start, the fall sports go until November, December?
Usually November, just depending on playoffs. So there is a bit of overlap sometimes, usually at the end of October, beginning of November. Our basketball is starting, our cheerleading is starting, so there's a little bit of overlap. And then depending on playoffs, fall sports can go all the way into November.
Now, and then you have winter sports, and then you have the spring sports, right?
Yep. So winter sports is men's and women's basketball. Stunt and cheerleading will do their cheerleading portion of it. So they'll cheer for basketball games and things like that, and they're training for their season, which is in the spring. And then in our spring sports, we have outdoor track, baseball, softball, men's volleyball, and like I said, stunt. That's their season in the spring.
So now a big thing with parents is when they go to college, they think it's all about the sport. What's your take on what students do when they actually come to St. Elizabeth?
Right. So I would say the biggest thing that we do well, I think, is that athletic academic balance. So our coaches, although they put together, a rigorous schedule of training or meetings and things like that, none of that goes above their academic obligations. So if a student has a class, that comes first. If a student has, extra study hours or an advisor meeting, that always goes first. We as coaches can always work around with our athletic schedule, but we make sure that the academics come first because that's really why, the students are here in the first place.
Sure. Now, also a big topic today is NIL, name, image, and likeness.
Of course.
Do Division III schools get any of that? Do they do anything with that?
Yeah, so I would say it's on a player-by-player basis. We actually have some student athletes that have received multiple NIL deals, just depending on their marketability. We had a recent graduate, Alexia George, who was actually a women's baseball player. She played catcher on our baseball team.
Wow.
And with her being one of the few and only women's players playing baseball, she was able to receive some endorsements locally and then also nationally. And then on the men's basketball side, we had a player 2 years ago who received like a local pizza NIL deal. I don't know if it was actually money. I don't know the details of the deal because we aren't necessarily involved, but that was a big deal for us because that was one of the first in our university's history, and we're looking to get more and more partnerships just as we go.
Do a lot of students come to the school thinking that they're just all going to get money?
No, I wouldn't say that, but it's definitely a topic of conversation. Parents bring it up, students bring it up. Is that a possibility? And usually, kind of what I say to the students and the parents is that it comes down to how good you are, how marketable you are, but then also as a student athlete, you kind of have to advocate for yourselves and sometimes seek out those deals. There might be, companies that want to work with you, but they might not know that you're actually looking. So it's a little bit different at the Division I level where it's kind of more facilitated and things like that, but there is a lot of money out there, as far as endorsements.
Yeah. Now, how about for financial for the school? These days, a lot of schools are expensive, like any other school.
Right.
So parents are always looking for a way to save money on tuition and things of that sort. So what does the school have to help out students?
Yeah, so we give a large amount of academic scholarships. As far as that, I would say really the best way to reduce the cost at any institution is have the best grades possible. Take the hardest classes you can and then, do really well, get A's and B's. So we do offer an amount of academic scholarships. We also provide need-based scholarships, institutional aid. We obviously take, any Pell Grants or things like that, TAG, New Jersey TAG for our in-state students. But St. Elizabeth in general, the mission of the university really is to serve the underserved. So our financial aid does a really good job. And in general, they're going to meet, about 80% of, the kids' need as far as that. There's always going to be a cost to college, which we make sure parents understand, but we don't want it to be too exorbitant, depending on the income and everything.
Correct. So when students are coming and you're going out looking for students, your coaches are all going out looking for students. What's the recruiting process? Are they looking at the high schools? Are they looking at these outside teams other than the high schools? Do they look for real big kids, smaller kids? Because a lot of the better kids usually go to a Division I school, right?
Yeah.
So how do your coaches recruit is basically what I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say it really depends on the sport, on kind of where that recruiting process starts, but there's always, overlap between sports. So the travel teams are a big thing. Mostly because of the efficiency of it. It's not necessarily that coaches think travel teams are better than high school teams, but you can go to a travel tournament and maybe see 100 teams in a day, as opposed to going to maybe a high school game or a practice where you might be seeing 1 to 2 teams. But usually that's when we kind of gather the names, and then, reach out and have, connections with the coaches. Coach connections are really important, because if a college coach, trusts a high school coach, or maybe the high school coach has sent them a player before, they might be more apt to, think about that player, if they have some rapport there. But also, after the reach out, we're looking at, high school games, high school film. Sending film, I think, is the best way to really get on a college coach's radar, whether it's email, social media. It's really easy to pull up my phone and look at a video, as opposed to maybe driving an hour or two to go see you. So at least the film can get you in the door.
Yeah.
And then from there, a lot of it comes down to the student athlete and the family, after they receive that initial contact. A lot of times, it's the follow-up that really shows the college coach that you're interested. And then, getting you on campus, doing the application and things like that in a timely manner, is important.
So now, what type of grades do these students usually need to get into a school like St. Elizabeth?
Mm-hmm. So in general, we're looking for, at least a 2.8 or above. We do make exceptions, obviously, in the admissions process, but our student athletes actually do better than the general student population. So I know as athletic director, because I do the numbers with our compliance officer, but last academic year, we had a 3.0 for the department.
Wow.
So the athletes are doing really well, I think, because of the time management piece, the coaches are on them, things like that. But, with St. Elizabeth being, a school, a Catholic institution, we don't just look at the grades, we look at the holistic part of a student's application. So a student may not have the grades necessarily that qualify them, but if they, maybe do community service, maybe they're in the Catholic Church, maybe they have some extenuating circumstances, that might prevent them from getting the grades. We look at that whole thing. We're not just looking at the GPA and saying yes or no, but we do want students that are, diverse. We want a diverse student population, and really just try to help as much as possible, because the university was started originally to help women because there weren't many colleges that were accepting women. Yeah. So they want to keep that same, vein and that same purpose with other students that may not be able to get into another institution.
Great. Well, we're coming to the end of our show, and usually I ask my guests, what advice do you want to give to the students and the parents that are watching this and want to come to a school like St. Elizabeth? What advice you want to give them?
Yeah, so I would say, I'll go in general first. I think when you're doing your college search, you want to cast a wide net. There's so many institutions out there. Obviously, we'd love you to come to St. Elizabeth University, but there's many institutions out there, and really doing the research and going to the schools really gives the child and the parents a feel of what they might experience if they were to go there. For St. Elizabeth in general, I think the biggest thing is really just trying to figure out, what you want out of your college experience. St. Elizabeth is a really family-oriented place. We're faith-based, and the education you're going to get here is not just going to be focused on, your major or what you're studying. You're going to get, faith-based classes. You're going to get career services. You're going to get, mental health support here as well. So we try to make it a holistic experience, even outside the academic part of it.
Beautiful. Well, thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So you've been watching The Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva. Until next time.